Legend has it, one day, a new king will come.
Father Volko gave me my first swimming lesson.
I already know how to swim.
Not even close. Forget all the teaching of the surface world. Go deeper. Uncover your Atlantean instincts.
Training to be the best.
My parents made me what I am. I am the protector of the deep.
Right, welcome everyone. This is episode 53 of the Comics in Motion podcast. I am Chris Phelps and my good friend is Mr. Dave Horrocks.
Hi, Chris, and hi, guys. Welcome to the Comics in Motion podcast. What we like to do here is we like to review media like movies, TV shows, and games that are based on comic books. Myself, I'll be reviewing the media mainly from the perspective of a long-time comic book reader, and my co-host Chris will be reviewing mainly from that media perspective, and we'll walk through our given choice of the week, and we'll give our different thoughts on it. What we also like to do is we also like to spoil the hell out of everything we review. So if you haven't watched our choice of the week, then I'd advise you to proceed with caution. And what we also like to do is we like you to head over to Apple Podcasts or your podcast catcher of choice and drop us a 5-star review. This really helps us grow the show and gets us out to other listeners. So Chris, welcome back for the new year.
Thank you.
Have you had a good Christmas break?
I have actually. It's been all right, but I've just been full of the flu, Dave. So it's been watched a bit of Mary Poppins before on Christmas Eve, and I actually quite enjoyed it. It was very much, the same step for steps as the original, pretty much. But she's supposed to have been returned. But that was quite a good film, especially on Christmas Eve. And then we had a quiz Christmas Day with the family. I was the quiz master, false moustache and eyebrows and all.
Nice.
You might sort of face, but with a tie. And the prizes were it was actually better for you to come last because the first prize was a double Jason Donovan LP record when no one's actually got a record player. Second was second was a double episode of The Bill. Third prize actually wasn't that bad. It was a copy of Escape to Victory, which is a great film.
Nice.
And then the host, S, actually got a Bucks Fizz LP from 1982 as well. So there was plenty of charity shop rubbish, and a tin of rice pudding was given out as like a Christmas cracker, which was pulled by one of the.
Must have been a heavy Christmas cracker.
Yeah, it was actually. I had to hold the bottom as we pulled it, and then the only thing that was of worth note was a candle, which was actually, I don't know, it was some sort of it was just some ad hoc prize, but that actually got stolen by Sam's sister because it should have been someone else. And then on Boxing Day, everyone was going, "Where's the candle?" And it turned up at her sister. So in a drunken stupor, she'd actually took the only prize that was worth anything and sent in candles. So yeah, we had a good time, Dave. Very good time.
Good stuff. It's funny you mentioned about the 80s stuff from the charity shops. After we reviewed Bumblebee, it sort of triggered something inside me, and I've been off on a little bit of an 80s music rabbit hole because, going through it and you hear all the, the Simple Minds stuff, the touch, the from the Transformers movie. I've just been listening to stuff like that all the way through the Christmas period. But I tell you what, I did find out that song, The Touch, it was originally written for Cobra. Remember the Sly Stallone movie? It was supposed to be for that, but was never used. And so I guess they just bought it for the Transformers movie. But yeah, it's brilliant. So I'm just immersing myself in 80s nostalgia at the minute.
I'm with you, actually, Dave. I'll be honest. When we come out, we got the soundtrack on Spotify, and then straight away I've done the same. There's just been a little bit of a loop going on with that and A Star Is Born soundtrack as well. So yeah, no, I think it influences, doesn't it? And you forget how good some of the songs are, especially in that Bumblebee. It's fantastic, the placement of songs. Really are.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, good stuff. Now, Dave, obviously, we start the new year as we mean to carry on. And I just thought I'd drop in there. What are you actually looking forward to this year, as in TV, films, anything in relation to, obviously, the podcast, what we may be reviewing?
I mean, it's going to be a bit cliche, but I can't see past Avengers. I just want to know. I want to see that. I want to see, how everything lies after that movie, what the whole MCU is going to look like after that. And I know we've got things like Captain Marvel coming up. We've got Spider-Man coming up. We've got Shazam, which looks quite interesting, and I'm sure we'll mention Shazam again and again through this review, actually. But so there's loads of good stuff coming out. The new X-Men one, the Dark Phoenix, I'm kind of looking forward to, but for me, the highlight is it's all leading up to that Avengers movie. About yourself,
Dave, I heard a bit of a rumor yesterday that now I know he sat down. You're probably going to go, "This is nonsense," considering what the actors constantly said now for the best part of a year.
is this going to be one of Chris's wacky theories?
No. It's been the internet was alight in between Christmas and New Year. This one, Dave, but apparently there's a rumor that Mr. Hugh Jackman, i.e., Wolverine, could be in Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, I had seen that. Will it happen? I don't know. He's had enough cameos, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And I think if you were going to cameo anyone, it's got to be either Hugh Jackman or Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I would think if they were going to do that, but I don't think the Disney Fox deal hasn't actually gone through yet, though, has it?
No, I thought it was January. I think it's now, in it.
It's supposed to be coming up, yeah. But yeah, so I don't know. Do you want to see Hugh Jackman back?
I love Wolverine, Dave. So yeah.
I must admit, I'd kind of made peace with Logan being his last movie, though. I think I mean, Wolverine was always my favorite, kind of growing up in that, but Hugh Jackman's absolutely nailed it. So yeah, there's a part of me that does want to see it, but there's another part of me that just wonders, shouldn't we just move on? Or he's not got another 10 movies in him, has he?
No, true. I just they don't do what they've done with Affleck, where he's took over Batman, and obviously Bale was just the peak for me, whatever anybody says. And I've seen people out there the last couple of days raving over Batfleck, as he's called, but I don't see it. I'm quite vocal on that, but yeah, we'll see. But yeah, regarding this year, like you say, Avengers, I'm just constantly on YouTube looking at theories and little nods and stuff. And I'd mentioned to you what I thought. Captain Marvel, I'm interested in, but more because I want to know how it segues into the Avengers more than anything. If I'm being honest, it feels a bit like what Black Panther was for me last year, where it was a case of got to watch Black Panther, which I enjoyed, but it was more just a case of get that out of the way, and Avengers is next. And obviously we know Spider-Man's there. But another film I'm interested in, and I'll be going to the midnight showing, there's without a doubt, I just don't know how or what they're going to do with it to improve it, is Star Wars Episode 9, because that's out in December.
Yeah. I mean, that's right at the end of the year, isn't it? And it got, I quite enjoyed Episode 8. I have to say, it got some quite polarized responses, didn't it? But I quite enjoyed it. I think the only one that where it's dipped for me was really Solo, where I just thought it was a bit pointless. But I mean, there's going to be endless spin-offs, aren't there? And Disney are really going to crank that machine to keep the dollars coming in. But for me, I'm really excited about where does it end? I mean, it's going to be an end to like the Skywalker series, I would imagine, and then there's going to be something else after that. But it was always originally supposed to be these 9 episodes, wasn't it? So in theory, it doesn't feel like it after Episode 8, but in theory, this should bring everything to a close. Yeah,
exactly. Especially how old they all are as well, and they've killed off Han Solo. Obviously, Carrie Fisher's passed away, so we're not going to get Leia. And now they've done over Luke, which obviously you can come back as a hologram now. We'll have to do a lot of action stuff anyway. But I am with you. I liked Episode 8. The best scene in the whole film is when they join forces, Rey and Kylo Ren. I love that when they're in the like the Sanctum with that Snoke and stuff, and he takes him out with the lightsaber. I absolutely love that. I think that's a great. I watched that on YouTube quite a lot because I just love that turn with the music. But then there's still bits in it which I'm not totally sold on. But I did enjoy it, and I agree with you. It's a far better film than Solo. As much as I said the second viewing of Solo, I actually quite enjoyed. I do agree and completely with what you said is it was a film that was just not needed. Like it just didn't make any sense. And I know they're making a series, aren't they, at the moment, which is the Star Wars based one. I think it's going to be coming out this year.
Is it? I heard they're going to be doing a Rogue One sort of series. I don't know if that's the same one you're on about, but I'm sure there's constantly rumors about all kinds of different projects, and like you say, that I think I'm sure haven't Disney already made their money back, and I'm sure they'll continue to, like I say, crank that machine.
Yeah. Oh, it's called The Mandalorian. That's the TV series.
All right, okay.
Live action Star Wars TV show, The Mandalorian, is coming to Disney's upcoming streaming service. And it's not a cartoon or animated one, Dave. I've seen some of the stills and on-set stuff recently, but I couldn't tell you, and probably people listening are going to be like, you should know it, but I couldn't tell you really what it's about because I don't really know a lot of the backstory of the Star Wars stuff other than the main films.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, it's quite interesting,
I tell you one that I think I'm going to flip-flop on throughout the year until it comes up in, I think it's October. So the Joker, the Joaquin Phoenix Joker.
Yeah.
Because I get endlessly frustrated with Warner Brothers and DC, the way, they swap the actors and swap, the tone between, say, the CW series for Flash, and then they have a completely different Flash in Justice League. It really does my head in. And the fact that, we're going to have this Joaquin Phoenix Joker, but apparently, what's his face from Suicide Squad?
Jared Leto.
Yeah, Jared Leto. Apparently he's going to be back for the Suicide Squad sequel. So if that is the case, and by the time we get to October it's confirmed, I'll be like, well, there's no point. I've got nothing in this movie at all.
Yeah.
So again, a bit like we said with Solo, going into it and coming out of it, what was the point in that? I kind of feel with that Joker movie, going into it, it's the same. It's like, what's the point if you're going to put an origin story up there? It's going to be a different actor, slightly different tone. It looks more like the Dark Knight Heath Ledger Joker, doesn't it? From the bits that we've seen.
Yeah.
But then we're going to have a different Joker in Suicide Squad. So I'm not thoroughly invested in that, but I do think I'll be up and down on it. But by the time we get there.
I agree with you. I think it could be on the lines of a Logan type film, Dave, whereas a standalone entity, that's it, done and dusted. That is the whole film. But it's going to be hard. And I agree, the Jared Leto joke is just pointless. We said that in our Suicide Squad review. Just really poor execution. It was like a YouTuber who tried to recreate a film, like you see, and it was just nothing. He tried to go Heath Ledger, and it just fell flat for me. Joaquin Phoenix is older than the Jared Leto, so I don't know how that's going to work if it's supposed to be an origin story. Do you know what I mean? So I agree. I'm not too sure. And then tying into that, Dave, they are starting filming Bird of Prey as well with Harley Quinn, which I am going to give Asgard all day long because she's going to be on the screen for literally the whole film. So it doesn't matter what the acting is. Absolutely.
And the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn is the full title, isn't it? Apparently.
Yeah. Oh, dude, amazing. It doesn't matter what you say to me, Dave. I am sold on that film. I'll be taking Sam to the cinema, whether it's the 1 out of 5. I really don't care.
Well, I mean, again, we've got a few others coming out, haven't we? We've got Hellboy, the New Mutants, which, looks like it could be more of a horror thing, but, again, it's been delayed, that one. So let's see how that goes. When there's lots and lots of reshoots, quite often you find that's where you have a lot of plot holes in these movies. But I think Birds of Prey comes out next year, along with Gambit, which has been, again, in development hell for so long now. Channing Tatum is going to be drawing his pension. He's had his hat in the ring for so long, saying he loves Gambit, he wants to do the movie, but it's just never got off the ground. We've got Wonder Woman coming up. We've got tons coming up. So, this phase that we're in now of comic book movies, it doesn't seem like it's going to end. And I have to say, looking back on 2018, I think it's got to be one of the best years, I think, for comic book movies.
I do. I totally agree, and I think as well, Dave. Watching the fact that Wonder Woman's is wrapped already, wrapped in November, but they're not released it till 2020 because of the Avengers and the Juggernaut Marvel have got going this year. Because this is all in this year for Marvel. This is like the end of this universe, isn't it? So you've got 2018 and 19 are going to be monumental sales wise for the Marvel universe, without a doubt, Dave.
Yeah.
I just hope, having watched Venom and got invested in it, really enjoyed it as we both. I just hope that the sequel starts some sort of pre-production this year, maybe if they start filming next year or whatever. But we do see that, and we have these offshoots as the Daredevil TV series, and they're not dead in the water. Let's hope there's other things on the horizon for that. But yeah, I do agree. I think this year's just going to be another blockbuster.
Well, it's funny, isn't it, with Venom, because you've got two things, haven't you? You've got Venom, and you've also got the Spider-Man movie as well, the Spider-Verse,
which is brilliant. Yeah.
So Sony have not done a fantastic job, some might say, with the Spider-Man property for so many years, and so that all ended up with them handing it back, loaning him back to Marvel, and Spider-Man appearing in Civil War. But now you'd have to say, I mean, Venom got panned by the critics, but it's making so much money, and Spider-Man, I think I've heard a lot of people say it's the best animated comic book movie there is out there. It's better than The Incredibles and everything. So, they've had 2 wins on the bounce, and so I think Sony will be keeping on to hold of Spider-Man for a bit longer and developing that universe, I think.
I agree. And you know what's funny, Dave? It's so good that you brought that up. And obviously, it's not, I mean, we don't script this, we just talk, don't we? And it's organic. But genuinely, I was watching a top 10 on TV of films, of the year. And number 1 was The Avengers, right? And number 2, they said the best animated film that's been for years. And I'm thinking, well, it's got to be Into the Spider-Verse. And does it really matter? I'm 40 years old. Should I be bothered? And it was Incredibles. And I was screaming at the telly going, you are joking, because I didn't mind The Incredibles. It was the same format as the original one. It just didn't, I wasn't blown away by it or anything. I just watched it because it was on. But Into the Spider-Verse just went in so many directions. And I know, I don't know if you copied me in on this, or I'd read about David Hine. He wasn't completely sold on his Spider-Man Noir, was he?
Yeah, I think so. So I'd reached out to David just to see. So David had created the Spider-Man Noir, and I was just interested to see what his perspective was on, to see that character up on screen, because quite honestly, I never thought you'd see Spider-Man Noir up on the big screen, animated or live action. So he'd said that he really enjoyed it. And I think the character was just a different tone, wasn't it? Than I think from what I remember, and it's been a few years since I read Spider-Man Noir, to be honest, but it was a much darker tone, whereas the Into the Spider-Verse was a much more lighter tone, and it was a bit, let's just say, it was Nick Caged up to the max, wasn't it? Full on. Well, actually, no. Full on Nick Cage is a little bit more, but I think this was just the right amount of Nick Cage. So it was a slightly different tone, but I don't think he was particularly disappointed by it. He was just pointing out that it was a little bit different.
Yeah, it was. And it's good. It's refreshing, Dave, as well, I think, to show that they can actually, if they put the investment in and have the right writers and animators and everything else, you can produce something which is just as good, and if not better, than most of the actual live action films that have come out. I think that's a testament as well.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, do you want to tell us what we're going to be reviewing today?
Yeah, we're going to be going down the route of DC's Aquaman, Dave. I think it's only right. He's currently in the cinemas. And yeah, we had to watch it, both of us. So we thought, first review of the year, let's do something we both liked.
You're getting a bit ahead of yourself there, aren't you? I haven't said what my review is yet.
Yeah, saying that, neither have I, actually. But yeah. Anyway, something we've watched then, Dave. So,
yeah.
So what have we got? Comic book background, mate?
Okay, so Aquaman is a golden age character, so going right back to 1941. So he debuted in More Fun Comics number 73 and was created by Mort Weisinger. He's the writer, and the artist Paul Norris. Now, he's gone through different evolutions as different writers have come and gone, like a lot of those early characters. So in his early appearances, he could breathe underwater and control sea life for up to a minute. But he'd basically been taught by his father a lot of these skills. So he wasn't part Atlantean or anything at this point. He was just it was all learned stuff. He could speak to fish, apparently, in their own language, but only if they were close enough to hear him. So they had to be within about 20 yards of him for him to actually be able to talk to them. And like a lot of heroes that came about around that time, most of his stories revolved around fighting the Axis powers, so jumping onto Nazi U-boats and stuff like that. Now, in 1946, he moved across to Adventure Comics. Green Arrow and Superboy came along at that same time. But it was in the late 50s when writers really started to adjust his kind of origins, his powers, his personality, and it was in Adventure Comics 260 in May 1959 where they basically put down that Arthur Curry was the child of Tom Curry and Atlana. So Atlana at that time just being an outcast from Atlantis. Now, while Arthur was growing up, he discovered his superhuman abilities, including being able to breathe underwater, communicating with sea life, and obviously having tremendous swimming prowess. At this time, Aquaman had to come in contact with water at least once per hour or he would die. So this was a little bit of a, superhero weakness, which seems, I don't know, I don't know why that just tickled me, because he's out and about fighting and it's got a little stopwatch, has to go and get a drink of water every hour. But yeah, so at that time, his origin was reimagined as him being half Atlantean, half human, and the offspring of Tom Curry and Atlana. And that his origin's been modified along the way, but really that bit's stuck. Now, Aquaman was a founding member of the Justice League. And I have to say, from my own personal memory, I remember him from the Super Friends cartoon. Did you watch that, Chris?
No.
Oh, so good. You're a little bit younger than me, aren't you? It was in the early 80s, so it was just so good. I mean, if you go back, I daren't go back and watch it actually because I hold it in that block of my memory where it was really good. But I do remember his, like with the Batman, he's got very dark outfit. Superman is red and blue. There's a lot of kind of colors, but I remember Aquaman just standing out with that orange and green, and I thought he was really cool. Now, since then, he had become for a while a bit of a joke, that his superpowers to be able to talk to fish. But since then, he has become a bit more of a badass in the comics and obviously in the movies as well. So that's a little bit about Aquaman. What about the movie, Chris?
Yeah, what I find interesting, David, we're getting to the the movie stuff as always, is literally every sort of film, TV show that we've done, they seem to go in like, the production or the ideas of years before. Now, this one was going to be brought to screen, or the initial ideas was around 2004. Alan and Peter Reese, they were planning to bring it to the big screen for Warner. And what they did was they got a screenwriter called Robert Garant, who was going to do all the screenplay and all that stuff. But then what happened was it just went into limbo then for 4 or 5 years and nothing was done with it. And then Leonardo DiCaprio's company, Appian Way, they decided they wanted to take over like the production and the writing of the film. That never went anywhere. And then head forward to like 2014, and Warner Brothers then hired 2 screenwriters called Will Beall and Kurt Johnstad. Now, they got them both to sort of vie for the script. So they made them both write separate scripts for the film. So they had them going at the same time. Now, I don't know whether that's standard practice, and I've not come across that with anything else we've had. We've had real rewrites and people stepping in and changing stuff, as we know with the Superman trilogy and all that stuff with the Salt Hinds and stuff. But really, really interesting way they did it. And then in 2015, James Wan was come on as a director. And then the two scripts they had from Beale and Johnstad were then scrapped. Johnstad was said, we don't need you. He was sort of done. But they actually got Will Beale to rewrite his script again. And I don't know whether that's standard practice, Dave. I honestly don't know how it works, but I just find it really interesting, again, that to get these things on screen, you're talking like a 14-year process. And I know some of the films were a lot longer than that. You know, we've gone for somewhere it's initial ideas, like the Superman stuff was from like the late 60s, early 70s, and that's 10 years. So it's really interesting the way they do it. Now, casting-wise, Jason Momoa was always going to be Aquaman, Dave. Ever since he was in Game of Thrones, that was it. And I watched something with Jason Momoa a few weeks ago. He was on Graham Norton, and he was saying about how he struggled when he did the character in Game of Thrones, that people did think he was American or he spoke. He actually thought he was, he was foreign sort of thing because of the accent and that the way he portrayed himself. He portrayed himself as sort of like a Middle Eastern type person. Did he's got that look, hasn't he, of someone who's from the Far East. So, and that's a testament to him. I mean, everyone knows who he is, Jason Momoa. Just go back to like the late 90s and that. And he was in Baywatch. He was clean cut and everything. So you wouldn't think it was the same person. So yeah, so he was always on for Aquaman. That was never up for discussion. Most of the filming was actually done in Australia. They started filming in May 2017. Around the Gold Coast and Queensland. Now, they did do a little bit in Canada, Sicily, Morocco, which I'm sure we'll get into in the reviews, you know, regarding some of the settings. But most of it was all done on the Gold Coast and a couple of studios over there as well for like some of the pre-production work.
Very good.
Sorry, Dave. I'm not finished. I was coughing. Sorry. I was coughing. I was trying to mute it. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. When all quiet, I thought, all right, just finished.
Sorry. Now, this is something, I'll say again. Now, this is something I want to touch on, Dave. You're probably not going to believe this, but already Aquaman has overtaken, in box office figures, he's overtaken Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, Justice League. He's absolutely blew him out the water already. And it's on its way to making 1 billion at the cinema. He's actually made, at the moment, it's made 822 million with 215.4 in America and Canada and 606 million in all of the territories, Dave. And that's mainly, again, for to do with the Chinese market. He's absolutely just gone crazy. So he's going to be one of DC's. It will be DC's best film, Dave, if things carry on the way they are. And it doesn't seem to be stopping, which is quite interesting. And one of the big things they did, do you remember when I said Bumblebee, that we had this thing where a lot of the films now are doing, like, say, a couple of episodes, a couple of showings in a cinema, say 2 or 3 weeks before they come on, a bit like a preview. Yeah. Well, Amazon took charge of this one for Aquaman, and they actually paid for their sort of their customers to go to a lot of pre-shows to watch it. So in the 24-hour pre-sales for this, now this is quite unbelievable, Aquaman actually beat the two biggest other films for the first day, 24-hour pre-sales of Avengers and Jumanji. And they were the two films that were head and shoulders of everyone, and Aquaman's just blew them out of the water. And the Prime offer garnered 2.9 million in 1,200 cinema, which is absolutely unheard of. And Aquaman has actually broke the Christmas Day record for a film of 20 million in one day. It's absolutely, David. I mean, we said this about Venom. Venom's owned by Tencent, which I know Tencent from gaming, and they're like a massive media company over there in China. So Tencent had a stake in Venom, which I did say in my movie stuff with that. And that's why Venom's done so well as well in all of the territories, because of them and the Asian market. Now, this isn't part of Tencent, but again, in China, it's gone absolutely crazy. So it's breaking records all the time, Dave. It's unbelievable. And then when you look at the critical response, I know that doesn't mean anything, and we've both touched on this in some of the reviews, especially Venom again, but it's at 64% at the moment on Rotten Tomatoes, which is of 297 reviews, and they're all professional reviewers, which is good, with an average rating of 6 out of 10, which again is not bad at all. It's still better than average, and some of the other films that you would think were better reviewed only got 7 out of 10 as an average, but 297 reviews just shows to me how many different regions it's reached, Dave, because I think that's the highest we've ever had for a movie, and especially it's been out, for only about a month. Metacritic have got it at 55 out of 100. That's only off 49 critics' reviews, but this cinema score thing, which I've brought up a couple of times, they have a scale of A+ to F as the scale, and it's showing by the actual cinema goers as an A-, which is totally positive. And then in a couple of the other market research places, it's hitting 82 and 69% recommended films. So it's very positive, Dave. And DC, despite what we say about the MCU and that, this is actually going to be one of the best films of the year. And whether it'll beat Avengers, I don't think it will. But at the moment, I think it's 8th in the top 10 films of the year, which is for DC's fantastic, because Aquaman is not a character anybody knew about until you'd watch stuff like the Justice League and that. So it's really interesting that this juggernaut has just come in the last couple. And it's probably because of Jason Momoa, to be honest, Dave, because a lot of the girls and friends I know, like Sam and that, they were just drooling. They weren't bothered about the storyline. So I think it says it all when you've got, Henry Cavill's a great looking bloke, but Jason Momoa's got it all, and he tattoos, he's ripped up, he's got the long hair, the beard.
He's the bad boy, isn't he?
Yeah, he ticks all the boxes, doesn't he? And what a positive movie background, I think, today, Dave. It's really blown me away. There's not been a lot of controversy or anything. It's just more to do with the rewrites, but it is what it is, I suppose. So, yeah, that's all I've got today, mate.
That's very good, that. Really interesting. I wonder what resonates with the Chinese quite so much.
I don't know. Whether there was some sort of Aquaman manga cartoons or Aquaman series that they, in the Asian market, they produced their own, I honestly don't know, Dave. Or it could be the Game of Thrones connection and people just are drawn to him because he is a fetching, he's a good looking bloke, isn't he? He's really, he's got a lot of charisma about him as well, and he seems like quite an honest guy. Doesn't seem like the convoluted sort of self-centered actors that you see these days.
Yeah, I might have to have a research around after we finish recording because I'm intrigued by that. It can't just be the Game of Thrones. He didn't make it past the first season, did he? So
no.
It can't just be that. There must be something around that character, the way it was marketed, or something. Yeah, I don't know, but really interesting. So putting some context out there. So you'd seen this before I had.
Yeah.
And it had been out a week or so before I got to see it. So I got to see it just before Christmas. So I went into this and I'd heard all of this wonderful feedback from it. I hadn't gone out and looked at any of the reviews, but just people saying, "Oh, it's really good." I remember you saying, you've got a big smile on your face, and so I think I went in expecting something on the level of, say, a Thor Ragnarok. Because I'd seen the trailers as well, and they put some funny lines in there, and it's like, oh right, okay, so they're trying a different tactic to this very dark kind of Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman and Justice League tone, but I don't think it, for me, quite delivered on that. But we'll get into that as we go through our review, I'm sure.
Yeah, good stuff, Dave. So are you ready to hit it, Dave?
Yep, let's do it. Okay, so we start off with Tom Curry. He's in his lighthouse. It's actually, so in the comics, it's on Amnesty Bay, but I didn't pick up. I don't think they actually mentioned that in the movie at all. And I'd stayed away from most of the kind of news, and I hadn't honestly realized that Nicole Kidman was in this at all. So went in there. She's washed up on the shore as Lana, and then he takes her in. he looks after her. She decides to eat his goldfish, which I thought she's obviously a bit peckish. She's obviously been on a long journey there, and they'd obviously done a bit of the de-aging of him, which we've seen before, haven't we? We talked about. They did it with Tony Stark. They did it with Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury. What did you make to that? I'll just lay it up for you.
It was the first thing I saw, Dave. I'll be honest with you. When I saw it in the cinema, I genuinely had to take a double look. It actually looks like I was. I know it sounds stupid, this, but it looks like I was watching it in 3D because I'm thinking, surely that has got to be the worst wig I have ever seen. And in this day and age, and I totally agree, we've had the whole Michael Douglas in Ant-Man looks fantastic when he de-age him. Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson, brilliant. But I know it's DC, but for me, it just looks horrendous. I mean, he was CGI'd, obviously, even his face, because I kept looking at him thinking, I know who you are, but I couldn't work out for the life of me at that point who he was, Dave. And yeah, it quite simply is probably the worst wig I've ever seen in a film.
I think they borrowed it from young Clark in Superman 1, hadn't they? It was the same kind of wig, but it wasn't just the wig, was it? I was like you, and I thought I'd lay you up for this one because I said, for me, it's not quite delivered on what I thought it was going to. So I didn't want to jump in there with a complete negative to start off with. But I'm looking at him, I'm thinking, I know you. You kind of look like Jango Fett. You know, the actor's Tamara Morrison. He's a Kiwi, isn't he?
Yeah.
And I know you, but it's not you. I reckon they've got the same. The guys who did Henry Cavill's mustache, right, must have been the same people who did this de-aging. Because I've said in the past, I don't really understand why Warner Brothers keep missing the boat, on these comic book movies, and Marvel keep nailing it. I don't get it, because it's not just about the actors on the screen. It's not about the big marquee names that you have out there. A lot of it is just the people in the background. So you would have thought whoever's developed this kind of de-aging technique, is probably just some little contract company, like a mini DreamWorks or something, who've set this up. Just contract the same people and get the same kind of level of quality. But this was not. They might as well have just got a different actor in.
Yeah, it was bizarre, Dave. I mean, one thing with the actor, what's called Tamora Morrison. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Just a side note, have you ever seen Once We Were Warriors? I think it's called.
I haven't. It's an old 80s one. I used to. So when I worked in the video shop, it was always there, and I thought, you know what, at some point I must watch that. But no, I've never actually seen it.
Oh, it's a cult classic. He's renowned for. I know Jango Fett, and he was actually in Green Lantern as well. This guy, but he's called Jake the Muss, and basically they're all like Aborigine. Basically, they're all drunks and fighting and all this stuff, and he's part of a gang. Proper violent, Dave, and they did a sequel which wasn't as well received. But I'll tell you what a film. It's just, it was so well received. It was supposed to be like an independent film around this family and stuff, and it's just proper violent, Dave. Like the, do you remember Romper Stomper with Eric Bana?
Yeah,
stuff with Russell Crowe as well, that sort of cemented him on the map. This is the film that made him. And I couldn't work out what it was until we flicked forward, and I was like, oh my word, that is horrendous CGI. It's horrendous.
Because when you see Robert Downey Jr., I mean, he looks like the Robert Downey Jr. we saw in kind of Weird Science, doesn't he? He looks like a young Robert Downey Jr., whereas this one, yeah, it was pretty awful de-aging, wasn't it? I mean, given the high standards that we've seen before in other movies.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as well, though, Dave, thinking from a scientific, and as someone who's 40, we're always like, you think of like, as you get older, things change, don't they? And that guy's hairline with that wig would not have made him bald when he's older. he had a proper head of hair there, Dave. There was no way. He'd not lost any on the side. There was no like bit at the back or anything. He had a proper, I suppose he's a bit like a John Travolta wig going on. Then he Saturday Night Fever, and the next minute he's just like he's gone, and I was like, no, that is not even logically makes any sense to me. I know it sounds daft, but I don't know. I agree with you. I just thought it was, I don't know. I thought all this budget and they've used some cheap joke shop wig on him. It was just weird.
Like I say, I don't know if you remember. I mean, you must have seen Superman 1. You probably rewatch it more than I do. So the young Clark, you know, where it's Christopher Reeve's voice, but it's a different actor.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw the wig on screen, I thought it's the same wig. Maybe it is a little callback to that.
Yeah. Because if you remember on the Superman episode, he absolutely despised Christopher Reeve, didn't he? Because they decided he'd actually acted all his lines. He was supposed to have a prominent part, and then they cut all his lines, didn't they? And Christopher Reeve pre-recorded all his lines afterwards, and he didn't even know until he went to the premiere that they cut him. So again, not only did he have a bad wig, he also got dubbed over. So yeah, I mean, it's a segue off, Dave, but yeah, really bizarre choice, especially now, 2018. I thought it was quite poor, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought it was quite poor, but I'm trying to be positive. so Tom and Atlanta, they fall in love, don't they? And they have a little baby, so a little Arthur. And when he's kind of growing up, they get attacked by these Atlanteans. So they have the little goldfish helmets on, don't they? And again, it comes up on the screen, and I'm trying not to be negative, Chris, but it just looked like Power Rangers to me when they burst through. I just thought, that doesn't look good.
Yeah.
So, you know, she ends up fighting with them, and you know, she wins out, doesn't she? Again, I don't know if you realize. So some of them, apparently, it's the Royal Atlantean Bloods who can breathe above water. You know, can breathe air as well as below water. So I don't know if you picked up on that. It's like, well, why have some of them need to keep being in a portable fish tank kind of thing, and another, like Nicole Kidman, Lana can quite happily just breathe away there. So yeah, I thought the action scene was okay, but again, for me, the suits it took me out of it. I just thought Power Rangers.
Yeah, you know what, Dave? I'll be honest with you before we go any further. I came out of it, spoke to you the day it was released, and I think I'll be honest, I got took away, I think, in being in the cinema, and you know, and I am going to pick holes in this. There's a few things I think that need to be said, and that's definitely one of them, Dave. Now the next scene is the pirates are like, you know, they're taking a submarine, aren't they? So the pirates hijack this Russian submarine, and then we've got the whole interception where Black Manta's there, don't we? In his group, and his dad is obviously part of the group. And what I didn't understand is they were putting a bit of bones on this character of Black Manta, who's like this, you know, horrible submarine pirate, which I thought was a bit bizarre anyway, that you would have nuclear submarine pirates, but you know they do have them. And this obviously is just a machine and a tool to actually bring Aquaman in. But the Black Manta stuff, Dave, I didn't buy it.
Unnecessary.
Yeah, I just didn't buy it. I thought if he's going to be a baddie, be totally nasty. But you had this sort of father and son loving, and I'm thinking, is this guy going to turn at some point to a goodie? I just didn't get it. And Aquaman obviously comes to the rescue of the submarine guys, because all the soldiers are like, all the Navy guys, so Russian Navy guys, are all hid behind a doorway, and Black Manta's there with his cronies trying to get this submarine and all this thing. And then Aquaman comes, and just the old, you know, my classic line, he comes and takes names. But I don't know whether I bought it, Dave, if I'm being completely honest.
So I think they brought that whole submarine piece in. I think it's a callback to his earlier appearances, I think. You know, when it was said about him fighting the Axis powers and stuff and fighting Nazi U-boats, well, he can't do that in the movie right now, can he? So, you know, you have to inject something into the story where he has to, you know, jump on a submarine, I guess. But I'm with you. I thought the whole Black Manta in this movie, he's like a secondary villain, isn't he? So
Yeah.
you know, the quest for the trident, I guess, and you know, his run-ins with his brother is part of the main story, and then this is like a sub-story. But I didn't really. It didn't really grab me. I just thought you could quite happily, because this was a long movie, wasn't it? I thought you could quite happily get rid of all of that, and you know, it not really affect anything. But I guess what we did see, I have to say, Chris, what made me laugh. It happened about 3 times where, you know, obviously Jason Momoa, Aquaman, he pushes the submarine to the surface, doesn't he? So, you know, we see his superhuman strength and swimming ability to be able to do that in the first place. And then he gets onto the submarine. And when he sort of steps up, you hear this like, this little cue, like this guitar cue. It's like, down, down. He's like, yo, yeah.
Yeah.
But they did it about 3 times. It's like, oh, come on, you're just overdoing it now.
Yeah, you're right. That's because I must admit, one thing that always ruins one of the scenes in the Justice League with Jason Momoa is this, because they're trying to portray him as this sort of cool, sort of rock, you know, sort of superhero. Is that bit when Superman comes back in Justice League and he gets Steppenwolf, and all of a sudden he stood next to Wonder Woman, and he goes, all right. And I'm like, oh, that is just proper cringe. It's just like, there's just no need for it at all. You know, it's just like, doesn't make it. And I agree, them little steps and little things, they're trying to make him cool, aren't they? Yeah, I agree. I just don't think it was completely necessary at all, Dave. And I think the whole situation with the submarine thing, it was a weird direction, because Black Manta's father then ends up sort of giving himself, you know, he basically suicide job, innit, and detonates this thing to blow the submarine up so Black Manta can get out. He gets out, doesn't he, like at the last seconds. But then Black Manta's got a bit of vengeance that he wants to come and get Aquaman, doesn't he? And that sort of give that, like you say, subplot. But I just didn't buy it. It was just like, if you're going to be a baddie, be an absolute horrible baddie, but your dad's a thief, you're a thief, and then you're having this loving with each other. I just thought it was really weird.
I thought, you know, again, I'll come to the tone of this movie is supposed to be very fun, and I went in expecting some fun, so it seems strange to me the bit that didn't quite sit right with me. It wasn't just that Aquaman didn't just let him die. I mean, he didn't put the missile on top of him to pin him to the floor, so he'd effectively drown if he didn't, you know, blow himself up before that happened. But he could have very, very easily saved him. So it hung on there too long, you know, for me. You know, he's just let him die, essentially. So you're kind of, what I was thinking, well, all right, he's a pirate, so he's not a very nice person, but of course, you know, the sun's going to come after him there.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, going back to 2003 Daredevil, there was a lot of criticism that Ben Affleck's Daredevil, he let someone die, but it wasn't quite as deliberate. I thought as this one, and so I think they've put it up there so that they can show the character's growth. So, you know, it's a little bit like the Thor kind of arc, isn't it? So he starts off, he's a bit arrogant and reckless and what have you, and then, you know, he'll become that hero, but he isn't that hero at this point in the story. So, but it did seem, for considering it was supposed to be like a very fun tone, I thought that was a bit much. But we do see some of his powers, don't we? So
yeah,
we do see that he is super strong. You know, he can withstand bullets and what have you. So and some of the action was okay. and just if the guitar was a little bit overdone.
Yeah, and then from there we get the underwater scene, don't we? So we get to see Atlantis now, don't we? So it's we get introduced to Orm, who he was in. So I was watching the other day. Patrick Wilson, isn't he? He's the actor.
Yeah, he's in something recently, isn't he? So I know him as Night Owl in Watchmen.
All right, yeah. I watched something the other day. He was in.
Yeah, no, he's in a series, isn't he? Hold on.
I watched him in a film actually the other day. What did I watch?
Didn't you say you saw Insidious?
No. Oh, he's in that, isn't he? Is he in that, Dave? Is he the main character? Yeah, he is. He is actually. Yeah. No, I saw something. Let me have a look. I saw something the other day, and I said to Sam, I said, "Oh, that's him out of Aquaman." Oh, The Conjuring. He's in as well. I'd seen
The
him
Conjuring. So Sam got you watching all the scary movies.
Something like that. Behind the pillar, Dave. But yeah. So yeah, he's been quite a lot of things. A bit of a renaissance as well. So we get introduced to him, don't we? And what I found interesting though, Dave, and I've got to say, talk about pulling an actual casting out the bag. But we get introduced to King Nereus, don't we? It's good old Ivan Drago, Big Dolph there.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting him. Wasn't expecting him at all.
I didn't even know he was in it. I'll be honest with you. Like Nicole Kidman, I was like, well, he's definitely pulled this one out of the bag. He's gone from doing a dodgy Russian accent in Creed 2 to this. I mean, he's probably filmed this before, but it took me by surprise, Dave. I'll be honest with you. It really did take me by surprise.
Yeah. I hadn't heard that he was in this at all, and quite the animation on the hair sort of floating as well. I thought that was. I couldn't really decide. It looked very clever, but without looking real, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I was going to say that. That's one criticism I would have, is it looked too deliberate, didn't it? Obviously, these guys live underwater. They breathe through the water, everything. But I watched that said at Graham Norton thing, and they asked him about the hair, Jason, when he said, how did they do it? And he said, basically, they tried a few things underwater. They couldn't, because obviously they're acting. It's pure CGI. And you know what Graham Norton's like. He's an absolute, kisses the backside. But he's like, oh, it's fantastic. It's amazing. But I'm with you. I couldn't work out whether it was over-egged, which I think it was personally. It just looked too cute at times. And it really took it away from what they were actually saying, I think, because you were more mesmerized by what the hair was doing than what they were actually saying. So, yeah, I don't think that worked either, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. But Orm's trying to rally King Nereus, isn't he? So Dolph Lundgren, and trying to get him to join his war against the surface world, and he doesn't look like he's having any of it. But then the next minute, you get this submarine coming out of nowhere, and fires against them, and then Orm saves the day, doesn't he? And destroys that submarine, and then King Nereus is like, oh right, yeah, it's actually a pretty good idea, let's wage war against the surface world.
It was a bit too convenient, wasn't it? It's like me and you both saying, oh, I wish I'd win £1 million, and then all of a sudden someone knocks on the door and gives me a check. It was like, could you not have had something so convenient?
Well, I think they do an okay job, I think, of letting us know. So Orm had basically paid off David, so Black Manta, to come and fire on them, hadn't they?
Yeah, but I just thought, for me, Dave, I just thought that was far too convenient. I just thought, no, it's not believable that would happen while they were basically, he's trying to win him over, in campaigning to go against the surface world. I don't know. It didn't sit with me very well, I must admit. I thought it was too much.
The bit that I found weird is, again, this is the lost city of Atlantis, so why would a submarine just suddenly pop up? Is this a regular happening? This, that's what I wasn't too sure about. But like I say, it was all a ruse. So it was Orm's idea just to basically get, to curry favor with the king, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I get it. I get what they were doing, but I don't know. And I must admit, Dave, they join forces. You are correct. Neris is like, right, let's do it. And you can see there's a few of his Neris' his people, his daughter as well. They're skeptical, aren't they, to what's going to be going on? They obviously don't want to get involved in this. They don't trust Orm. So we get that little bit of a devious side to Orm, don't we? And then obviously we find out it is Black Manta straight after it who'd done all this. So straight away, there's a big arrow pointing at Orm saying, you are the bad guy. So we know straight away that he is the one. But then I've got to say, Dave, if there was one scene that in the whole film made me cringe, it was the next one. Is Aquaman Arthur goes back to land, obviously after saving his submarine, and he's in the pub, innit, and puts his arm on his old man. And we get this now proper age Django Fett, his dad, Tom, and they're sat at the bar, aren't they, and having a drink. And you see like over your shoulder, there's a group of what looks like a load of bikers, don't they? And then this big bloke comes over, who'd not missed many McDonald's, and he comes over and gives him a tap on the shoulder, and you're thinking, oh, here we go. The old cliche, father and son, let's have a fight, but he's a superhero, and he's like, you're that, what does he say, that water boy or whatever he says, this fish boy or something. And next minute, it's just basically a ruse to have a selfie. And Aquaman goes from like not liking him to getting drunk with him in like about 4 or 5 different pictures, which I just thought he was proper cringe, Dave.
I quite like that bit. I thought that was, just a bit of fun. I thought it was fine. I liked his line that he said to his dad as well. He can breathe underwater, but he can still drink him under the table.
Yes, that was a good line, actually.
But yeah, the sort of selfies and stuff. I thought the way they turned was a little bit Superman 3, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But the whole selfies and getting drunk thing, I thought that was okay. What I wasn't as okay with was he just, he says his dad can drink him under the table, but he puts him in the car and starts to drive off.
Yeah, I thought that. I was thinking, well, is he his dad can drink him under the table. His dad's too drunk to drink, drive the vehicle, which obviously he wouldn't do as a responsible person. I think DC get absolutely called out on this, but nobody's even mentioned the fact that obviously because he's superhero, he mustn't get drunk. So that actually didn't make any sense, did it? Because he's just driving the vehicle along, isn't he, along the coastal road. I did think that straight away in the cinema, thinking, I don't understand that. It didn't make any sense. It wasn't explained to us. Maybe they'd said, you don't get drunk off alcohol, but you're actually promoting drink driving there.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just, and then he's driving along the coast road, and he's in his little, his Jeep. I think it's a Ford F-150 old type one. And the next minute, I must admit, I did like this CGI bit. There's just this massive tidal wave coming towards them, and he tries to outpace him, doesn't he? Which he's never going to do in that rust bucket of a truck. And the next minute, they get flipped, don't they? But there's all like boats and ships, and everything's just wrecked, aren't they? And his dad, Tom, is basically not breathing, is he? He's ready to go, and Arthur. Arthur's okay, but he's done to get rescued by Mira, don't they? Who's Neris' daughter. And I must admit, Dave, I think she's very, very attractive. I do like that red hair, I've got to say.
Yeah, so Amber Heard, she's been in a few things. She's quite well known, isn't she? But it made me feel. It's just going to sound a bit lefty, I think, but it made me a little bit uncomfortable, to be honest, because again, this is 2019 now, and when we've gone back and we've looked at some of these films from like the 80s and the 90s, and they're so misogynistic. They're so the women on screen are basically mostly damsels in distress, and they're there to be leered at. Yeah, I just felt that was what Amber Heard was there for. She wasn't she's not a great actress. And I don't know. She is very pretty, obviously. But yeah, I kind of just felt that that's the only reason she's there.
Yeah, you're probably right, Dave. I do think she's really pretty. I do. And no, it's not me. To be honest, now you've said it, I probably agree. When you look over the old the overall film. There's a couple of bits I quite enjoyed with her, but yeah, I can't really argue with that, Dave. I'm being honest. Maybe I don't know. Maybe because the tone of this film is very much like 80s, isn't it, and stuff. I think the way some of the scenes are and that it's set now, but it does feel sometimes like you're watching. That's a great point, Dave. I don't think I can expand on that anymore. I think you've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a bloke as well.
Yeah.
so I'm not going to be writing a letter to Warner Brothers that her green leotard was a bit too figure hugging, but it just struck me as something a little bit out of sync with where we are in 2008. We watched this in 2018, so let's say 2018. But yeah, she manages to save Arthur. So she'd been trying to get Arthur to. She manages to save Tom. And because of that, Arthur's like, okay, I'll come down to Atlantis, because she'd basically failed to try and convince him to come down and help out before. So yeah, I thought I'm with you. I thought the CGI was really good in this bit.
Yeah, it was. But then you go from it being really good to being a little bit off. We get introduced to Vulko, which is the Green Lantern. It's Willem Dafoe.
Or Willem Dafoe from Platoon. Yeah.
Platoon, yeah. And, he's introduced him, and he's obviously Orm's right-hand man, any confidant, sort of politician, fixer-upper, but he's actually working behind his back, and he's been the guy sort of doing the old Mr. Miyagi job with Arthur and training him up for years, and we get a lot of flashbacks, don't we, between Arthur and Vulko. But I must admit, Dave, the CGI to de-age him,
it's not good, was it?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't good. It was almost along the. I tell you what, it was almost along the lines of, and it wasn't as bad, but it wasn't far off. Princess Leia in Rogue One, and Christopher Lee as well. When it's blatantly terrible. It was pretty much. It was almost like they superimposed him in, and there's a white line around him. Like as if they just photoshopped him on. It was pretty bad when he was doing this whole sort of training Arthur situation and flashback scenario. I thought he wasn't a bad character in the film, but again, I think like you, I know we said about Mira being like the eye candy and stuff, but it wasn't really necessary. I didn't really buy into the fact that he could just randomly go off for days on end training Arthur behind Orm's back and Orm's father. I just didn't, that Orm's father, obviously, Atlanta was what's it called Atlanta. Atlanta was his mother.
Yeah.
So I just didn't buy that, if that makes sense. That didn't really make a lot of. It didn't make any logic to me.
Yeah, I think I just don't buy Willem Dafoe as a goodie.
Yeah,
just
the Green Lantern, the Green Lantern,
the Green Goblin.
Green Goblin, sorry, Spider-Man, always.
Yeah, but I mean, pretty much everything I've seen him in, I think he's just got that face that I just think looks really sinister. Yeah. So I just think, I'm not having you as a, goodie, but yeah. So I mean, they end up after his little bits of training montages and whatever, they all meet up, don't they, in this like sunken ship, and they try and convince Arthur to find the trident of Atlan.
Yeah. Yeah,
but they're ambushed by Orm's men, and Vulko, so Willem Dafoe's character, and Mira can't be seen, because they're playing both sides, aren't they? So Arthur gets captured, and they have to just kind of swim away and escape, and that's where we get essentially this bit of a back and forth between Arthur and Orm. Orm's clearly very upset about Arthur's role in his mother being sent off. So we find out that Atlana had been sent off to her death. And he basically says, I think Arthur has a little bit Game of Thrones style. He's got a stronger claim, hasn't he, to the throne?
Yeah,
So Orm's kind of threatened by that, and so they end up they agree to have this duel. I can't remember exactly what they called it, but you kind of get the impression that Arthur's just gone in there a bit cocky, but everyone else is like, yeah, but he doesn't really know the score. He doesn't know the rules or anything, or but he just wants to get in there and take some names, doesn't he?
Yeah, it does. And, Orm has been training all his life for this moment and all this. And they get all that. It's all bit cliched, isn't it? And Arthur sort of thinks he's a bit, his ability, he'll just win over. He's never really come up against anybody, has he? Even though this is set after the Justice League and the Superman stuff and Batman, Batman, it's all around this. Arthur is not, no one on his level has been able to sort of take him out, have they, or anything? So, yeah, it's pretty much a cliche, and Orm almost takes Arthur out, doesn't he? But Mira jumps in and saves him, basically, and they end up in the Sahara Desert, don't they? Which this point in the film, I think I said it to you when you'd asked me after I'd watched it, just before you had, is I like this setting where they're in the desert and Sicily. I'm not too sure about her outfit she's got on, because where she got changed and all that doesn't make a lot of sense. But you said very much Indiana Jones. I know I'm nicking this from you, Dave, but the Tomb Raider video games, it was exactly like that. It was very much. I know. Do you remember Romance in the Stone with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner?
Yeah.
It felt like that, and I actually liked that film from years ago because I always had a thing for Kathleen Turner, but I always liked that film, and I liked it. I liked the whole thing in where they were in the desert and having to find. They had to find the message, didn't they? The old Obi-Wan, "You're my only hope" message in this tomb and everything. And there was a bit of a puzzle going down, which reminded me of like a computer game in some respects. But yeah, I thought it was all right. I thought it was good. I thought, and then they end up in Sicily, don't they? After all this, I do. I think it was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, we'd seen a little bit of the Indiana Jones stuff, hadn't we, from the trailer, and the line about where she gets some sweat off his forehead, because previously the Sahara Desert had been underwater. That was the whole line. So because it was all dried out, it wouldn't work. This little puzzle, and he says, well, I could have just peed on it. So it was weird. At some times they were really playing up that he was this dumb kind of jock type character, but then later in Sicily he's going on about he knows all the Greek philosophers and stuff. So I don't know quite what they were trying to tell us there about his character. Was he just playing up the dumb jock thing, but he's actually really intelligent? Or is he a dumb jock and he just happens to know this stuff because his dad made him learn it all? I don't know.
Yeah, a very good point. And once they've gone from the desert, they've obviously got this message. You know what they need to do. They go to Sicily, and Orm then pays a visit to Black Manta, doesn't he, David? And he gives him this technology, which basically makes him look a bit like a massive ant, if I'm being honest. I mean, I don't know the character from the comics. Is that any reference to the comics?
It is a very faithful adaptation, from the comic book to the screen. But I don't think it should have been. Because again, when I said earlier that the Atlanteans looked like Power Rangers, well, this one was even more Power Rangers. I thought it just looked awful on screen, to be honest.
Yeah. It was a weird one, wasn't it? Because he gets this stuff on, and they're like, this is a sort of, it's in what do you call it, a prototype sort of thing, and they give him this, to go after Arthur, and he goes after Arthur, doesn't he? And we get a good segment now where they're running on top of the buildings, don't we? Him and Mira, and that's what I'd seen in the trailers, and I quite enjoyed it because Arthur and Mira don't win. But he does end up in a bit of a showdown with Arthur. And again, he's just got this suit. And he's modified it. And you see the A-Team segment where he sprays it black, doesn't he? Because they give it black. And he comes after him. And this is the whole, the Black Manta character. But he's pretty much done and dusted within 5 minutes. And Arthur still beats him. So he sort of goes off licking his wounds, doesn't he? And that's pretty much him for the rest of the film. It was a real weird way to introduce him.
Well, at this point, we think he's dead, don't we? So, I mean, he gives as good as he gets, doesn't he, in his little suit? But Arthur basically chucks him over the cliff, and you assume, he hits every rock on the way down, and you just assume he's dead.
Yeah. So
very pointless.
Yeah. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, Dave. I just thought it was very bizarre. I just thought it was a waste of a good character, because if anybody was going to go and get Arthur, it was supposedly this vengeful son who, you knew at some point he was going to have to get some sort of advanced technology, because he couldn't fight. He tried to fight him, didn't he? He had his pirate suit was a bit more advanced than an army suit and everything, but he was still no match for Arthur. So he needed something to level the playing field. It would have been nicer if he'd gone to some sort of showdown at the end. I actually wanted him to fight him more than Orm, if I'm being honest. Orm, I don't think, was very believable as a baddie. I was more invested in Black Manta.
Well, this could be, and with the amount of money that's been made, there is zero chance that there's not going to be a sequel. But let's talk about that a bit more when we get to the end credits scene.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, yeah.
So, but yeah, because I think the only point in all of this would be for a sequel, and not for this movie. I think having that character in there for this movie adds almost nothing, other than a bit of action in Sicily and blowing up lots of stuff. But you could have just had that with the Atlanteans. You didn't even need Black Manta to be there.
Yeah, no, you're right. And Orm then, he's back on Atlanta, and he reveals his hand on it to Volko. If Volko's his right man, he basically says, "I know that you were involved in all this, and you trained him up, and don't let yourself think that I didn't know." And he basically takes him prisoner, doesn't he? And instead of killing him, he's like, you're going to watch this sort of thing. Basically saying he's going to kill Arthur and that, and that was too much of an easy plot device, Dave. It's seen so many times in these films in general. You just knew that was going to happen at some point.
Yeah. Why didn't you? If you knew all this time, why didn't you just kill him?
Yeah.
Before he was trained. No. I'm going to come up with this convoluted plan over 20 years, and I'm going to let you train him so he's almost my equal. And then I'm going to call you out, and I'm going to go, ha, I knew you were doing it all this time. Oh, dear.
It's just a typical plot device, isn't it? There wasn't much writing going on there when that come to it, Dave. I just think there had to be some spite to give Arthur that bit of a nudge to go above what he'd already faced, because he'd sort of lost that battle. He needed a bit of oomph behind it, did he? So Volko, supposedly he's a bit of a mentor and stuff.
Well, does he even know though? Because they're off in the desert. They've gone from there to Sicily, and then they sail off to go looking for the trident, don't they? So I don't know that they don't even know Volko's imprisoned.
True. I meant later on when he's fighting at the end. But you are right. No. At that point, he knows nothing. I
think it's probably just he's got a bit of plot armor on, hasn't he? It's like we need to keep this Volko character. He's quite an integral character, so we need to keep him alive. But to introduce a bit of tension, we'll call him out on his secret training camps.
Yeah. It's just. Yeah, I don't know what to say. But like as you've just said, then Arthur and Mira sail off. They encounter the trench, don't they? Have a battle. There's a bit of a pirate, because this is the thing. It changes a lot. I know it's all based around the sea and everything, but there's quite a few nods to the various films, isn't there? Because we get like a bit of a pirate battle, don't we? And then once they've fended them off, they end up in this wormhole where they go to the center of the earth, don't they? And Arthur and Mira, after a bit of fighting, basically they get through to see this figure, don't they? This white figure who's got looks like white dreadlocks and dishevelled suit, and it reminded me a little bit of Ant-Man v Wasp, Dave. You know, when you know, Hank's reunited with his wife, innit? What's she called? I mean, it's Michelle Pfeiffer. What's she called?
Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah, Michelle. I can't think her name is, but
Janet Van Dyne.
Yeah, Janet Van Dyne. It was a bit like that, and she takes her mask off, and it's like she's tried. You know, it's like, you know, it's Arthur, and then, you know, they hug and all this, and then it's sort of like, I've been trying for 30 years to get back or whatever, but she can't defeat this Lethian, can she? What's called Carathan. But Arthur goes in there, and, you know, he basically, the Carathan speaks and says, like, you know, what better warriors than you have come, and he tried to sort of take the trident and stuff. It's off Neptune, isn't it? King Neptune. These skeletons there holding the sword. It's a bit like King Arthur, doesn't he, really? The way he's sat there, he's like crouched in that.
I thought he looked a bit like the classic kind of Aquaman.
Yeah. You're not.
But do you know they got Julie Andrews to do the voice of that Carathan?
Yes.
So this mythical Leviathan, and I just thought, why?
Yeah.
What was the point in that?
You know what? To be fair, I should have put that in my movie notes. But when I read it, I was thinking, well, you didn't want to appear in Mary Poppins, but you wanted to go into Aquaman and just do a voiceover. Maybe she got paid more money for it, Dave. I don't know. But yeah, it was it didn't. You couldn't have told it was her. I didn't know it was her till after the film. So I don't know.
Yeah, like I say, for me, it could have been anyone, but. Yeah, so he has a bit of a battle, but it's never really in doubt, is it, that he's going to get the trident?
No, and he basically doesn't really win, does he? He just sort of gives himself to Carathan, doesn't he, sort of thing, and then he realizes that he is like the king, isn't he? It's a weird battle, I thought.
Yeah, so I think his mum, so Atlana, she tried to go up against her, but didn't they say a line that it's only the true king of Atlantis or something that's worthy of this? And I think he basically declares that, you know, he's going to use the trident to protect, you know, Atlantis, the underwater world and the surface world, not just, you know, one or the other. And so it's at that point where they kind of back off. Carathan backs off, and it's like, all right, yeah, I'm convinced, sold, you know. So you must be the king then. So and lets him have it.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and we do get the old. It's a nice scene actually, because Arthur comes through to his mum and Mira, and he's got this top yellow Aquaman suit on, Annie, the like sort of amphibian suit on him with the scales and that, and comes out. We've got the proper like superhero. He whacks the trident down, and we get him to see him in his glory. Now, is that again, Dave? You know, forgive me for this, but I take it that's a nod to the comics, the suit he's got on.
Yeah, I mean that's more your classic Aquaman suit. I mean it's obviously modernized a little bit, but yeah, I mean that's your classic Aquaman suit. That is.
Yeah. I thought
it looked absolutely fantastic.
It did. I mean, you know, we slated the CGI in places quite rightly, but this was like next level, believable stuff as well. And I was a bit gutted he didn't wear it in Justice League, but obviously this is done after Justice League.
Now, okay, so a little bit of a tangent here. Don't you just feel, and I said about Justice League, it came way too soon. You know, they were just trying to replicate what Marvel had done in building up to that Avengers Assemble movie. You know, having the Iron Man movies, having the Thor movies, the Captain America ones, built up to Avengers Assemble. But you only had like Batman versus Superman. I think you had Wonder Woman, didn't you? And then Justice League. I was like, it was all too soon. And then you just threw in these characters without knowing that much about them. Surely this movie would have been better coming out before Justice League.
Yeah, totally agree.
You know, there was just a line, wasn't there, about fighting Steppenwolf. So you know that timeline-wise, this is after the events of Justice League. So, but I just think, yeah, surely... If you had this, if you actually plan this out, have your different movies first. Have your Aquaman movie, your Flash movie, Cyborg maybe movie, and then have your Justice League movie. But Yeah, I think it would have been a lot better to have this before, but and totally to have him in that costume in the Justice League movie, have it all bright and vibrant. Maybe they'll get a chance to do Justice League 2 and they'll really give us the type of movie we want and deserve. But let's see.
No, it's a great point. Great point, Dave. And obviously, we were now at the sort of back end of the film. Arthur's got the trident. He then goes looking for Orm. We know there's going to be another battle. I've got to say, Dave, I don't know what you know this with the comics. I presume it's out of the comics, but Orm declares himself as the Ocean Master, which I thought was a terrible name. Absolute awful bad guy name.
It's out the comics. So, I mean, to be honest, so Orm had not been. He was basically. Let me try and remember. So, I think his dad had remarried, sort of normal, sort of human woman, and the offspring was Orm. So he was Arthur's half brother, but he was nothing to do with Atlantis. And then he just sort of turned up. He left and then turned up one day as the Ocean Master. But yeah, it's probably not as not one of the greatest names. And again, in recent times, they've done a good job of, not really, when you've got cheesy names, working around that. So I have to say, so over Christmas, I was watching with the family and that. I watched Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Yeah.
And, there's a bit in that, isn't there, where they have Taserface. And they make a whole set piece of it where Rocket's just absolutely relentlessly, mercilessly ribbing him, in front of all his I was going to say colleagues, all his fellow Ravagers about Taserface, and what a terrible name it is. But for me, Ocean Master is up there with Taserface, to be honest, as a terrible comic book name.
It's really bad, Dave. It's like you hear the Dungeon Master. I was just like, oh, that's terrible. And when he said it...
Don't be dissing the Dungeon Master.
No, but you can sort of believe that because Dungeon doesn't... There's not a lot of things you can put after it. But you understand what I mean? When you say Ocean Master, I was like... And then it was like the maniacal, I am the Ocean. I was like, oh, this is rubbish. It's a terrible name. Terrible. And it leads into the big battle, doesn't it? We get this, we've got the sharks on one side. We've got all these, because obviously what we haven't mentioned is the sharks are used as a bit like horses, aren't they, in the sea and stuff. And we've got the...
sharks with frickin' laser beams.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Dr. Evil would have been proud.
We've got like all these like underwater creatures and stuff, and they're all battling, and Arthur's there fighting, and it's just a bit of a mess, really. The fight scenes, it's quite hard to see what's going on, other than the odd flash of yellow to say Arthur. He's quite because it's underwater. It's probably hard to replicate, but there's a lot going on, Dave. It reminded me a little bit of what I mentioned in the Bumblebee review about it was easy to follow who was fighting who. I know there's not a lot of Transformers in Bumblebee, and he's yellow, but it was easier to follow them than the ones previously because there's so much going on with the mechanics and they're trying to over-engineer the Transformers. It just, you used to lose what was going on, who was winning and stuff. And in this, it felt like that. It felt like because it was underwater, they were trying too hard to get the CGI right. And for me, lost a bit of the feeling, the punch behind the fight. You just knew that Arthur was going to come out on top, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it all looked very complicated, very expensive, and, on some level, pretty impressive. But I wasn't fully bought into it. And it just ended up just being a bit of a big confusing mess on screen. But I mean, you do see all the different kingdoms, of Atlantis, don't you, all fighting each other. So yeah, but you don't know who do you root for?
Yeah.
But I mean, it becomes clear that, Arthur is the king of Atlantis, and he's the one who's wielding the trident. So all of Orm's followers end up renouncing their obedience, don't they? So, and basically declare Arthur as the true king.
Yeah, and the pretense of Orm not liking Arthur as well, because he's always been aware of his half-brother, is that it was Arthur's fault why his mum had been sort of banished, hadn't she? Disappeared. So his the whole plot with Orm as well was that fact that this sort of half brother, because he was half human, had sort of ostracized his mum, and he didn't have these years with his mother, did he? So his whole anger towards Arthur was also the fact that, one, he was going to take him over as king because he knew that he had more of a claim to it, and two, he'd lost out on these years with his mum. But then obviously they have a fight and Orm and stuff, with Arthur. Arthur wins, and he's basically at the stage where Orm could be, killed. And Arthur shows a bit of mercy on him. And then Atlanta comes, the mum, doesn't she, and sort of embraces Orm and says to him, so Orm's sort of hate towards Arthur, you can actually see in that scene, it's sort of, he loses a bit of the anger towards him. It's more pity. You can still see he's got that, he gives him like an over-the-shoulder look, doesn't he? Because they basically take him off to be prisoned, don't they? Which he's not dead. There could be, maybe if there is a sequel or what, he could be a character in it. But there is, like you said, when we've watched these films, you are correct. There is a bit of a redemption there for Orm that possibly could work. He could work with Arthur down the line, maybe at some point.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, let's see what they do in the movies. But the other bit, I mean, I touched on it talking about Amber Heard's character Mira, and so Arthur and Mira are together most of the time in the comics. Like I say, with the various reboots and stuff, they still end up together. But I didn't think in the movie they didn't really do a lot to say that there was anything of a romance there. But at the end, they seem to get a bit cozy.
Mm.
It just seemed to come out of nowhere.
Yeah, but didn't they kiss as well while the battle was going on? It was just random, wasn't it? Didn't they just randomly kiss while everyone was fighting around them in that war?
I must have missed that.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened. They didn't just kiss at the end when everyone was going home to put their feet up and have a bit of cocoa. It was actually in the middle of the battle, like the main battle between everyone. They just kissed in the middle of the water while there's everything going on around him. And that was it. And I agree. It just seemed to comfort, because it was very much a brother-sister thing, wasn't it? It didn't feel like there was chemistry there.
That is a really good way to describe it. That's what it looked like to me on screen. It was like a brother and sister relationship, which makes it a bit weirder. A lot more weird.
No,
but
it's certain places in the world, Dave, that's acceptable.
Like I say, this isn't Game of Thrones.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Well, I don't think the Dothraki did that, but
no.
But yeah, so like I say, I mean, they're together in the comics, so I was kind of expecting it, but I just didn't think the film did anything to kind of show us. They had a little bit in Sicily, didn't they, where, again, Mira's kind of warm into the surface world, which she'd previously despised. But I don't know, it was cheap for me. Yeah,
it was. And we're at the end of the film now. They've got to put all like the full stops and everything. So we get that. We've had Arthur tell us that Tommy's dad, every single day, goes out from the lighthouse, walks down the sort of plank walkway, the gangway, to the edge of the sea where obviously Atlanta lived and came from. And, she ended up going back there when they took her off. And she's actually, as he comes out of the lighthouse, there she is at the end. And she always said she was going to come back, didn't she? 20 years later or whatever it is, or 30 years later. But she comes back. And that's quite a nice little bit. You knew it was going to happen. They embrace. Everyone's happy. And then we get Arthur, who's on the throne of Atlantis then, and he with Mira by his side. And, that's like basically the end of the film. Or is it, Dave?
Well, then we get into our post-credits scene, don't we? Now, did you stay for the post-credits?
I did, yeah.
Okay. So then we get this bashed up Black Manta suit, don't we? And like I say, in the main movie, it's not quite as bad as Deadpool 2, where they basically, the end credit rewrites everything that's happened in the movie, where he goes back in time and rescues his girlfriend. But so in the movie, we think Black Manta, we assume he's dead, but he washes up and he's found by Dr. Stephen Shin. Now, he is out of the comics and he's obsessed with finding Atlantis. So, David agrees to work with Shin if he can help lead him there, basically just so he can get there and exact his revenge on Aquaman. So I think that is, that's proper classic post-credits scene where it's just leading us on to the next movie.
Yeah, and he's a strong enough character, Dave. If they build him up correctly, he could be the foil that I think Aquaman deserved. You know, as a character, to make him stronger as well. Like we've said a million times on the podcast, a good hero needs a better baddie. I'll always go to Wilson Fisk, and that's the level that any sort of bad guy should be in these films to sort of ascend a superhero. You have to be emotionally invested in all of them. And again, Orm and Black Manta. It's a shame Orm, I wasn't really bothered about. Black Manta was a bit of an investment there because he looked like a bit of a nasty piece of work, not used enough. So yeah, possibly in a sequel it could work.
Yeah. So should we go into our review?
Let's go. So, Dave, I can't remember who's first.
It's been a little bit of time, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've had
one.
Yeah, we've had a Christmas break. I'll go first if you want on this one.
Yeah, go on then.
Yeah, I come out of it, went into the film not knowing what to expect, and genuinely, I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. I said to you I enjoyed it. I thought the set pieces are good. Like I say, some of the stuff we've said about the wigs and that were just nonsense. Not that bothered. For me, again, I know it's cliched, but if you are going to have a 6'4" sort of, guy who is ripped up to shreds with long hair, tattoos, beard, and he's going to have his top off all the way. For me, he needed a bad guy who was even bigger than him. I know it's stupid, but visually, for me, it works that you have someone who he's got to overcome and he's really got to dig deep and take out. I know, the Man of Steel, it had General Zod, but it also had a couple of other sub-characters, a bit like Superman 2. Yeah, Superman against General Zod, he'd tear him apart. But when you've got three of them and a big guy, it was a bit more believable. And I think that's where the DC stuff with the films, it misses a beat. Steppenwolf, CGI, useless. And I just think I wasn't bothered. It was Black Manta, as you just said a minute ago, that was invested in that as a possible foil for Aquaman. Loads of cheese in this film. Great action sequences. I would recommend going and watch it at the cinema while it's still on. There'll be probably another month or so. But now that we've gone through it and I've had time to sit back and think about it, and this isn't purely for the podcast, I was going to give it an Atlantis, which is quite appropriate, I suppose, for the film and that. But I'm not, Dave. I'm actually going to knock it down. I think it's a good film. It's a good romp. It's a good thing, but there was just so many things that were just a bit cheesy and too obvious. So I'm going to sadly send it to Hell's Kitchen.
Oof, you're knocking it down a whole 2 points.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not expect that, to be honest.
You mean to go on?
Yeah. We're all optimistic for the new year.
Yeah, Avengers. It's definitely a Phantom Zone.
Okay, so I went into this movie, as I mentioned at the top of the review, really expecting something a bit special. And all of the noises that I'd heard, it was like, you know what? Warner Brothers and DC have absolutely nailed this one. They've corrected all of the mistakes. It's a much lighter tone than it was in all the previous movies. And so I think my expectations were higher going into this than, it would have been if it was Justice League 2 or something like that. And I do have to say, I do think it was a fun movie. There were lots of fun bits. Again, there was some bits like, letting Black Manta's dad just die. There were some bits like that where I just thought it wasn't quite in keeping with that fun tone. Because, you had you had an octopus playing the drums, in the middle of the duel, didn't you? And I just thought, you know what? If that appeared in Marvel, the amount of geeks and nerds that would be screaming, Disney are taking over. They're trying to Disneyfy everything. I just thought that was a little bit too much for me. But I do like that they tried to capture that more fun tone, and I hope that they continue trying to do that. And I did say we'll probably mention Shazam again and again. We haven't, but what I will say is, from what I've seen of the trailers of Shazam, that's also going to be a very fun movie. So I kind of think, okay, so maybe the future of the DC, it's not the DCU, is it? The DCEU, I think,
Yeah.
the extended universe. Maybe the whole tone of it is going to be, they're going to lift it from this Zack Snyder darkness into this more fun tone. But I just don't think it delivered for me. I thought there were lots of things good about it. I liked Aquaman's costume. I thought that was great. I thought the CGI was really, really hit and miss. But I think because it tried, it tried to get that fun tone, I think I'm going to send it to Hall of Justice.
Yeah.
I was expecting this, and actually we talked about it before I'd seen the movie, hadn't I? That we gave a couple of Asgards, didn't we, for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Bumblebee, and I was genuinely concerned going into it that I was expecting an Asgard for this as well. I was thinking, we've never done that before, given 3 on the bounce. But no, it was. I was toying. For me, it's more on the Atlantis side than it is the Hell's Kitchen side. But no, definitely right in the middle there. So definitely go and watch it if you haven't seen it. But it's, for me, if I was to liken this to a movie, I would liken it to Spider-Man 3, which is widely panned. But I can watch it and still quite enjoy it. But the fact that there was a bit too much going on, there were too many characters that you weren't really invested in, and a little bit of a confusing, convoluted storyline, which you could have stripped out quite a lot, I think, and kept it to less than 2 hours. I think that would have made for a better movie. But yeah, so right in the middle for me. So yeah, very good.
So Dave, have you got any plugs for us today?
I sure have. So the first one I'll plug is the Grassroots Coachcast. That's where myself and my co-host Ben, we talk about all things to do with coaching youth football or youth soccer, depending on where you're listening to or from, and we talk about all the kind of trials and tribulations of doing that, about coaching these young little people. The second one I'll plug is the Chat Footy podcast. So that's where myself and Chris, we'll do a bit of a back and forth. So sometimes we're on the same podcast, sometimes we're not, but we will talk about our different teams that are in the English Premiership. So myself, I'm a big Liverpool fan. Chris is a big Manchester United fan. And if you're familiar with that world, you'll know that we traditionally don't really like each other. So we have let's put it mildly. So we'll be having a bit more banter. So I'm sure in the next few weeks.
We're damn right we will.
Chris, how about yourself?
Yeah, so we've got my podcast, the Contextual Podcast. If you get over to Twitter at Chris Phelps 78, and the Contextual Podcast, which is a gaming, MMA, WWE type podcast, and my vlogs, which are doing really well at the moment, Dave. The Vegas vlogs are put up on my YouTube channel. It's CPod78 vlogs, CPOD78 vlogs. I've hit about 5,000 or 6,000 views now across all my videos, and that's literally since November. So I've done really better than I ever thought I'd do. I'm not going to be giving up my job or anything, but I love travel and stuff like that, and it's really taken off. So if you get over there, you're interested in vlogs, and there's a New York one, a Vegas one, and a couple. There's one for comics as well that we did when I went to the Comic Con, and just a couple of things regarding me. So if you're not sick of my voice, then get over there, because you could be sick of my face at the same time. So, so Dave, what an episode. What a way to take us into the new year. I am laughing because I got in there just before you said it.
Can I just say, I've got something to say on the villain, because okay. I think, so again, we'd watched Bumblebee, hadn't we, with John Cena. We'd watched Sorry, we hadn't watched, but I watched with the kids Rampage with The Rock, and I was thinking, oh, you know what? Dwayne Johnson hasn't been in a comic book movie yet, has he? Surely he's overdue to be in something. So surely someone like that, I think, would be a better matchup for Jason Momoa.
Yes.
So if you had someone like that, because you're right, in the duel, I didn't really buy that Momoa was in particular peril. The only reason I did was because everyone else was saying he was, but I didn't with my eyes. I didn't see it. So I think they're overdue, both of those two, to come in either to the MCU or to the DCEU. And I was just thinking of that while you were wrapping up there. But the only other thing I thought was, how are you going to finish it off?
That's what I was doing.
I know.
You knew full well where I was going. I can't believe you just done that to me. Oh, well, Dave. Oh, absolute. I can't even say what I want to say. But anyway, so thanks for that, Dave. Yeah, you teed me up big time there. So we've reviewed Aquaman, first one of the year. All I can say to you is it wasn't great. It wasn't bad. As the great Mr. Momoa said, all right. That's about the best you're going to get there.
In this trident resides the power of Atlantis. In the wrong hands, it would bring destruction. But in the hands of the true heir, it would unite above and below.
Time has come for Atlantis to rise again.
We must stop him.
And how do you propose we do that?
By retrieving this.
Already got one of those.
Not like this one, you don't.
But what could be greater than a king?